Hello, in this video we're going to discuss Satan's worst enemy, Yorkie, part 2. So as mentioned earlier, Satan's first confrontation after changing his name from Lucifer to Satan with Yorkie happened when Satan had got his followers to hold captive a group of angels in the middle of a tagging field. And also in Sodom and Gomorrah, Satan came across Yorkie again. I just point out that in Sodom and Gomorrah, Satan was the mayor of Gomorrah. Baal was the mayor of Sodom. And Yorkie killed both men. And Satan never talked of Sodom and Gomorrah since. He normally remains quiet when it comes up, but he will talk with the right. He will talk eventually. It just depends on who's talking about it. Now, the Exodus, Yorkie was the angel during the Exodus with the flaming sword. So he walked next to a pillar of smoke in the desert and helped lead Moses and his people out of Egypt and into the Sinai and later into Canaan. So Yorkie was there the whole time. With Satan, he possessed the king of Egypt. And then after his eldest son died, Satan decoupled from the king of Egypt. And he went and spied on Yorkie, who was already there. So whenever Moses would go and see the king of Egypt, Yorkie was there and Aaron was not there. So that's the thing about it. And often people don't know this, but Satan later possessed Aaron, which is where we get these problems. So after the king of Egypt told Moses and his people to leave, they left, and then Yorkie pulled his sword out. He had one the whole time, and it was angel vision that showed flames on the sword. If you want to know the type of sword, you'll notice at some point that type of sword is in fact exactly like a katana. So we'll get to why it is a katana later. I'll just mention that the katana is actually from the tech tree, and angels were sent to Earth to bring that sword type to Earth, to Japan. Right, but it comes from previous histories. In the previous histories, Yorkie has confronted Satan and defeated him in every single history, including the first one. Right, so later on, Yorkie showed up again as the Black Knight of Kent. Now, with the medieval days, there was a group of angels, and God and Mary and Jesus and the Holy Spirit came to earth during the medieval days, in particular to Kent. So Jesus came to Kent as King George II, which is not really reflected in the history books accurately at all. So history in the Bible and history recordings of Kent and England in particular have all been altered by witches and Wiccans because of Satan. So Yorkie is an archangel from heaven, and he came to earth as the Black Knight of Kent. Now the beginning of this started in heaven. FC was also among the group that came to Kent. FC, the offender, who was one of Satan's followers. and he came to Kent as a priest and failed abysmally at what he was sent to do. He was supposed to add to the tech tree for the Catholic Church, the retreat, so that priests could have a break from being priests and be as normal people, have sexual relationships if they wanted, to get drunk, to have a good time, instead of living the rigid, strict lifestyle that they had back then and today. We had to send another angel down to earth in order to add to the tech tree, the retreat. He was also supposed to discover the alpha sprout, and he failed at doing that. He ate them all. So, yeah, not good. For Yorkie, he helped with the trade routes to China. So he escorted caravans to China and back to England, loaded with tea. And that's how tea got to England and to Europe, is that way. And these trade routes still exist to this day. But as far as Satan's concerned, whenever Yorkie was around, if Satan was around, being a knight, Yorkie would pull Satan up onto the side of his horse normally after hitting him in the face with a mace and torture him and kill him. So Yorkie intimidates Satan a lot. And a lot of things that Satan has brought in, including laws in New Zealand and other countries, is because of Yorkie. So witches and Wiccans, millions of them have been killed by Yorkie. As a knight, he came across Freemasons as well, who were causing trouble in England, and he killed them. The way in which people behaved back in the medieval days and Queen Victoria's time, there were people who were out to cause trouble, and was always witches and Wiccans, always. The other people that Yorkie killed was priests, in particular Jesuit priests. So not just any priest, just in particular Jesuit priests. So Jesuit priests are in fact Wiccans, even today. And they hide as Catholic priests or Christian priests, but they're not. They're Wiccans. Some people who are innocent might have joined them thinking that they're going to become Christian priests, but they're not. So Jesuit priests used to go into villages and single out a person and say they're a witch. There's always a Christian they pointed at, and then the villagers would grab the person, or they'd bring a mob of witches and Wiccans to do it, and then they would torture and kill the person that was accused and their family, normally. Unless Yorkie turned up, in which case he would just kill everyone, except for the innocent victims. Although often they died as a result of what the Jesuit priest was doing. One time Yorkie went to the place where the Jesuits live and killed all of them. But then for some reason they started up again recently. So that's a bit about Yorkie. And the wedding funeral, when it took place, Yorkie turned up at this wedding that Satan and his wife were going to have. The woman was pregnant, and Yorkie pulled her up onto the side of the horse and cut her stomach open and pulled the baby out and cut the baby into pieces and handed them back to Satan, saying, here's some Antichrist. Would you like some more Antichrist? And give him another arm or a leg. So it sounds brutal. It is quite terrible when one describes it. But it was in fact Aaron Chassis, except for, it was Aaron Chassis. And the woman was an Aaron Chassis that was possessed by Baal. So you'll find that Yorkie wore black overalls 400 billion years ago when he confronted Satan, and he also wore black overalls in Sodom and Gomorrah. He also wore black overalls in the Exodus. It's things people don't know about. And as the Black Knight of Kent, he wore black again. So we'll discuss where the colour black comes from in a later video. But its origins aren't to intimidate people. So witches and Wiccans wear black to try and scare people and look dark and sinister. Satan even had influence over Nazi Germany, and the Waffen SS wore black for the same reasons. But in the case of Yorkie, that's his work clothes. Alright? So, that's his work clothes. That's why he wears black. In the case of the Black Knight of Kent, Yorkie made his own armour and had to paint it black because there were some missions that had to be done at night, and you want a black, sort of a dull black colour that doesn't reflect light in order to carry out those missions undetected. So there's some history that people don't know much about. And Yorkie was later good friends with Queen Victoria and died during Queen Victoria's reign. And that is where they get the poem about the Grand Old Duke of York who had 10,000 men, which is another story. and it involves Yorkie. I'm the Archangel Daniel, and I'm from heaven.